Well, good evening, folks, and welcome back to another episode of When It Was Real. The show focuses on the glory days of the WWF in the 1970s, the perfect time to grow up as a professional wrestling fan. Now, I'm just the guy staring up at the lights after around 2 minutes, but this other guy, he's the one getting his hand raised by Gilberto Roman, and I could only be talking about Nikita Brezhnikov. Nikita, how are you, my friend?
How you doing, Brother Benny? And everybody out there, thanks again for joining us. We won't
Absolutely.
disappoint you.
No, this is going to be a good one. Well, Nikita, before we do our commercial, I have some very exciting news. Starting tonight, we will be carried on radio station WANT. Besides being shown on the great Monte The Pharaoh YouTube channel, we are going worldwide, baby.
There you go. It's happening.
Bigger and better. But, folks, as always, a quick word from our sponsor, and then on to what we promise to be a bloody good show. Really bloody.
Here we go.
Give me one moment here. There we go. There we go. Sorry about that, but this is Benny Scala, the one and only player. Folks, I am beyond excited to be co-hosting this new show, When It Was Real. And I am just as excited to be announcing our new sponsor, the Free Spirited Company. Free Spirited is a phenomenal old-school clothing company that specializes in short and long-sleeve T-shirts, hoodies, tank tops, graphic tees, heck, even yoga pants. These T-shirts are, to quote Rocky's manager Mickey Goldmill, a wake of art. Yours truly will be rocking the Free Spirited merch on each and every episode of When It Was Real. Not only are these shirts eye-catching, but they are very comfortable as well. Like what you see? Please go to shopfreespirited.com and use our special code MP20 to receive a 20% discount on all purchases. Again, that is shopfreespirited.com, and that code is MP20. As the poet laureate of the Monte The Pharaoh YouTube channel, I will leave you with this. If you like what you see, go buy a tee. Heck, maybe 2 or 3. When your friends tell you, hey, you look like the bomb, send them over to shopfreespirited.com. Well, Nikita, time for our toast. So What I'd like to do is propose a toast, like Rick Rude. What I'd like to have right now, like to propose a toast to all the great wrestlers who literally shed their blood for us when it was real.
You got it.
Salute.
Thank you. Zdravia, Tavarish. Wow. I mean, you can't ask anybody to do more than that.
No,
you say, what do you think about it? But they did. They bled.
Yeah. So last week, Nikita, we wrapped up our two-part series on the history of the WWF Tag Team Championships. I really enjoyed that. I learned a lot. But tonight is a show of a different color. And that color is red.
I got to correct myself. Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson, November 15th. I got a little bit mixed up last week. See, I do go back and review you guys out there. We try to give you the best product. So there you go.
Yeah, no, we work hard on this. But yeah, so tonight the color is red, and we're going to share our memories of the bloodiest matches in WWF/WWF history. You know, Nikita, nowadays you got guys like John Moxley in AEW. Every time he farts, he blades. But, you know, back then, blood was used sparingly and in the right way to add to the storylines.
Well, that's just the problem for today's wrestling. Is like, how in the hell can you not have blood? And then you're saying this other situation, they have too much, kind of like ECW. It was like bleed. It's like,
yeah, it was a blood match. Yeah.
Now the Sheik, the original Sheik, you knew that's what you were going to get. Abdullah the Butcher, fine.
Yeah,
that's why you brought them in. You're going to do that, but every time it's like, come on, no. We're going to explain people as we go through our fans why, and we're fans just like you, so we have that passion. And this is why we loved When It Was Real.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to start with this one because this, you know, we talked before the show. This meant the most to me. And this was the Bruno Larry exhibition. I believe it was on, you can correct me, January 22nd, 1980. Championship Wrestling in Allentown. So the whole
Yep.
storyline, Larry wants to wrestle Bruno just to show how good he is, right? But now, initially, Bruno doesn't want to fight his protege, but then the cards and letters pour in, and Bruno finally agrees because he doesn't want to disappoint the fans to do the exhibition. And they called it an exhibition, not a match. Now, the match started out clean, but you could see Larry's frustration. I mean, he really worked this to perfection, in my opinion. His frustration increased by the moment, and finally, Bruno reverses a hammerlock, sends Larry flying out of the ring. Bruno holds the ropes for Larry, always the gentleman, only to be kneed in the gut. Larry brings in a chair, and that's what happens is what you see right there. And, you know, I was 24 years old, and yeah, I had been a wrestling fan for probably about a dozen years, and I kind of knew the score, but this left me in absolute shock.
You know, a couple of points. They did it with a wooden chair. I don't think anybody realized, hey, in Allentown, there's no metal chairs. It's tough to do a headshot, a chair shot with a damn wooden chair. But, and Larry hit him 3 times. Now, you got to know, you're right. Larry sold it to perfection. So did Bruno. Well,
Yeah.
I can't believe it. You know, Larry, I didn't know this was happening. I don't know Larry felt that way. Beautiful. So it's like, okay, there's no way in hell Larry's ever going to hurt Bruno unless he would like rip his balls off. So this was it. Boom, the chair shot, and Bruno bled unlike I'd ever seen before. It poured. I mean,
yeah,
wow.
it was yeah.
And
I mean, literally a puddle
right
of blood.
Tony Altamore was out there, what towels, trying to wipe it up, mop it up, and Tony Atlas and Johnny Rods were the next match, and they just stood there, and everybody sold it so well. It was perfect. It was just great. And and Bruno, of course, they carried him out as he laid on his stomach on the stretcher, so you could just watch the blood continue to pour and sell it. Because a lot of times on television, and we'll see some of the others that you have in this collection, and it's like, you know, they'll move somebody out, like, watch out for the camera, you know, let them see the blood, because it was important. I mean, at that point, Larry Zbyszko's life was in danger, I believe. And, you know, they weren't on last, and it wasn't the last match of the taping. Otherwise, Larry probably couldn't get out of the arena. So it's like, that did it. Bravo. Beautiful. And if you notice that feud, there was no other blood until Shea Stadium. And Bruno had the cut arm, Larry had the cut head. And that was perfect too. It's not like, because you figured first time they met was at the Spectrum on March the 1st after this. And it was like, okay, you figure Bruno's going to eat him alive. He did, but it wasn't any blood. And it's like, wow, that's amazing. Follow-up match, no blood. The Garden, no blood. It's like, what the hell? It's unbelievable. But they played it right. They're going to bring people to Shea Stadium, and that's exactly what they did, and it was great.
But now you're talking like, what, 7 months after the initial chair shot? I mean, this feud had a lot of big legs, long legs.
Yes, but, you know, it kind of faded for a while, and then it came back. Because when Tony Gurria came back into the area, and then Larry attacked Tony, and then Bruno came out to do the interview, and like we talked with Tony, he said, you know, Bruno, tonight, break every damn bone in his body, because that was shown in the afternoon of the Shea Stadium card. But now, this brings up, in my mind, when Spiros Arion did his heel turn on both the Chief and Bruno. Bruno
Right.
just happened to be at ringside. And of course, they built that up for a few weeks where the Chief and Arion were having a little bit of trouble. Nothing that looked serious. But then when the Chief and Arion accidentally collided and Arion went flying out of the ring, that was like, that's it. And he hits the Chief with a chair. And that one, it's blood all over the place. And for television, that was really weird. So was this. We did get the big X in Baltimore, but other stations allowed it to be shown. But then when Bruno hit the ring with the Valiants wrestling the Chief and Arion, you know, and then they start ripping his shirt and the big attack, and it's like, damn, Sam, that's it right there. Now Arion's become again, life is in danger because he did get stabbed in Philadelphia one time, leaving the ring after a TV match. And it's like, geez, that's how you get it done. You know, it's funny. If you talked to a psychiatrist or a psychologist and they sat back and watched an arena and watched the frenzy, I mean, first, of course, if it was one of our favorites that bled, you wanted blood, so it's like, okay, that's normal. But people were orgasmic when the heel got his comeuppance and he would bleed. I'm sure they
Right.
would sit back and say, look at this sick bunch of bastards. I mean, they got to be demented people, but it's like, hey, we're caught up in
Sadist,
the
right? It's
moment.
almost sadistic.
Well, you know what? I've seen it over the years where they said violence is one of the greatest catharsis known to man. And Gorilla Monsoon said it very eloquently. He said, people are basically come to wrestling. And it's like we're riding down the highway and there's a bad accident. They all got to look. Everybody's got to
Oh,
stop and
rubbernecking,
say,
yeah.
what the hell do you want to see? It's a tragedy. Keep on going. Or
Right.
the news.
And
How does the news survive? It's not the news. It's news entertainment. People want to tune in and they want to see shit. It's just part of it. Like wild sex, it sells. You got to have controlled environments. I'm not talking about rape or anything crazy like that, but people like to be over the edge. And this definitely put people over the edge.
Oh, absolutely. So, yeah, I believe Larry said that at times, I believe he got shot at once, and I think he had to sometimes come into arenas in the trunks of people's cars. That's how, that's how much they were wanting to get him.
I believe it. I mean, especially in a city like Baltimore or New York, Madison Square Garden,
Oh, yeah.
where Bruno's beloved, or Pittsburgh. It's like, yeah, I bet your life is in danger. There's no question about that.
Now, Nikita, a couple of things. So, Larry, I guess, left the territory once this feud was done. And I remember one thing that he did say is that Bruno never really pinned him or made him submit. Nope. And that was done on purpose, according to Bruno, to keep him strong. But now the story that I've heard is that Larry wanted too much money, and that's why he left. And I'm wondering, we always do the what if scenario. What if he had stayed? Do you think he could have possibly taken the title from Backlund?
No, they had some good matches. At the Garden, they had one match, and it followed, it again, done to perfection like an orchestra leader. After Larry had two matches with Bruno in the Garden, the Battle Royal on May 19th, Larry wins. And he was pretty smart. He was hanging back most of the time, let everybody beat their brains out. And then Monsoon actually pulled him into the ring. And Larry wins the Battle Royal. Also beats Dominic DeNucci later on the card. It's like, son of a bitch, this guy's on fire. So naturally, for June 19th, hey, tomorrow, the anniversary, he wrestles Backlund. And he wins on blood. Backlund is a bloody mess. But there's never a rematch because then the Garden was dark for a couple of months. And that's why they went to Shea Stadium, Democratic Convention or something of that nature. If you look at it, every 4 years is what happened. Then there would be at Shea Stadium to try to make up the gates. They come up with some idea because, look, we're going to be dark for 2 months, maybe 3. Shit, we got to make this money back. With the exception, of course, when Bruno got his neck broken, it's like, oh, man. That had to send everybody into just convulsions, I guess. But so Larry, he never got a return match because when everything returns on September the 22nd, Harley Race makes his appearance against Backlund, title versus title match. And then that's when they threw Larry in with Tony Gurria. And like I said with Tony, I think that drew more heat than Backlund and Race because everybody wanted to see Tony against Larry. It was a good matchup.
Right. I really think Larry owes a tremendous debt of gratitude to Bruno because, as a result of this feud, he leaves, and he's a star everywhere he goes. And he uses the nickname, the New Living Legend. And he got a lot of mileage out of that.
But he, to me, is one of the kings of the interview, the promos, because he didn't have to scream and holler. Things he said just were spot on. And he did a series in Baltimore when he was going to wrestle Backlund. He said, "You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give you a lesson each week, Bob. Here's lesson number 1, Bob." And then on the conclusion, he said, "This week, no more lessons. This is titled What Is. When you go through life, sometimes you don't like what happens. Like you see a red light and you got to stop." And when he went to say you get pissed off, they bleeped out pissed back then in the 1980 people. So you weren't allowed to use that kind of language. But then it really made good sense because Larry said, "Don't worry, Bob. When you lose tonight and I walk out with the belt, it's okay because that's what is." And it's like, he's great. He's a master on the mic.
Who would have thought it though? Because I mean, quiet Larry Zbyszko, humble, Tony's tag team partner, good guy, good wrestler, Bruno's protege.
Well,
I never would have thought he had that in him, but man, what a surprise! What a great surprise!
Never had the opportunity as the face, right? What the hell are you going to talk about? Once in a while, blah blah blah. When he wrestled Superstar a few times, when Superstar Graham had the belt. But we all knew it's like, because most of the time Tony would be in his corner. I really thought somebody would have put Bruno in Larry's corner for one of those matches. And then, of course, that would lead to Bruno, but it never happened for some reason. And I guess they thought, well, maybe it makes Larry look too weak. You could look at it that way, like a doctor's opinion. That's why you go for a second opinion. But they did what they did, and we loved it. It was great.
And Bruno, I mean, the master after that, I mean, when he called Larry a Judas, I mean, that was like the perfect word, this Judas, and I'm thinking like, wait, well, yeah, he's a traitor, right? I mean, yeah, perfect.
Yeah, but at first, Bruno's come down, he's like, I'm thinking like, well, what did I do? How did I cause this? Why would Larry turn on me? And then it was like, you know what, Vince? Now I understand. He was like this all along. He had everybody fooled. He is a Judas. And this guy, he's going to pay for everything. It's like beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Like an orchestra. This was just, okay, now the violin.
I'm sure Vince Sr., like you could hear the ka-ching in Vince Sr.'s mind, like this is going to be money.
Yeah, but what we heard originally was that Senior didn't want to do this. He said nobody's going to really care. And Bruno had to convince him. But like Bruno said to Larry, you got to do what I tell you. Because Larry, he's got to get the crown for this because he had to play like the weak link here because he couldn't do anything with Bruno. He hit him on the balls or he catch him coming in from the ropes or something like that. So it's like you had to let Bruno be the Superman, as he would be if it was a shoot, he'd kill you. So this was great. Larry, salute, because you did it perfectly. And not a lot of people can eat the humble pie and put somebody else over to that extent.
Right. No, it was masterfully done. Somebody in the chat room, it's past now, but they said Ric Flair would fuck up Bruno. It's like, in what universe?
I've heard that so many times over the years. Well, go read Bob Backlund's book where Ric Flair was almost in tears when Bob went down to Georgia for a title match. And he said, something's weird.
Not to hurt him, right? So please don't hurt me.
He said, please, Bob, don't hurt me. And it's like, well, then, let's just go out there and have a match because if anything starts to get itchy, I'll scratch it. No problem. It's like Ric Flair and Bruno. Bruno would break him in half.
Even 1980s
you're a
Bruno.
Ric Flair, that you are devoted to Ric Flair, but please, Bruno Sammartino, he got a lot of accolades, but nobody really understood just how strong this man was. Johnny Valiant said he was like a gorilla. This guy had strength that if he had let loose, he would probably kill somebody. Because what's a bear hug?
Right.
You got to breathe. And if he crushes your ribs, you're finished. And he could do it. Especially if it was over-the-shoulder backbreaker, he'd kill you.
I think even like 1990 Bruno wouldn't have any problem with Flair. Even like, the 55-year-old version of Bruno.
No way. Bruno, that's it.
Yeah, this was one of the, to me, if somebody said, "What is your favorite feud ever?" This is always number one for me. But
I like
let's see
Bruno
what else
versus
we got here.
Arion, but that's close. Yes, it was
Yeah.
great.
Now, Nikita,
Now,
obviously, this is Bob Backlund. Who is this against?
Ivan Koloff. That was April 28th of 78. And for our dear friend Melody, there's Uncle Ivan, his handiwork. Now, this is the first time Backlund and Koloff met. And I mean, anywhere. They hadn't been in any other arena. They hit the Garden first. And you see the result. And Bob, I have it, the match. It's a very good match. It went almost 30 minutes. They were scientific. And Backlund did that. There's another guy. Do you think he's that strong? It's like, but he is. He's unbelievable. How can you get Ivan Koloff, or Koloff has Backlund in a short arm scissors, and he's on the mat, and he lifts Koloff. It took about 3 or 4 attempts, but he lifts him off the mat and puts him on the turnbuckle. It's like, I don't believe what I'm seeing.
He did
This
that
is
with
incredible.
Swede Hansen, I think, and he did it with Hulk as well, I believe.
Yeah, the Spectrum, he did it with Hogan. Yeah, and it's like,
I mean, Hogan's 310 pounds. It was like you lift him like one arm like he's nothing.
Or the bridge with somebody on his stomach or chest. I mean, look, Bob Backlund, we were lucky that, okay, he followed Bruno, no comparison. Bruno's his own universe. And Bob Backlund wasn't supposed to top him or equal him, but he was his own champion, his own style. And man, he was great. He bled a lot. Now, this to me was Ernie Ladd followed after this, but it was kind of like to establish Backlund. It was the guys that Bruno beat Parade. It was Superstar, then Patera, Arion, then Koloff, then Ladd, and then he went on to Maivia and Valentine, and things started to turn. But this was a great match. You can see the police in the short sleeve shirts. It was hot as hell, August in New York, of course, the end of August. And yeah, it was just a great match. And there you go. You got the color. The next month they came back and that was it. Then they were done. It was just a quick reversal, and Backlund got the pin on Koloff for the win. But well done. And then they did the tour all over the circuit. We got to see a cage match in Baltimore. That dragged on. That was December of 78. So we got the best because they weren't able to do a cage at the Garden. Look, Long Island would be like the carryover up at Nassau County Coliseum because you only had so many dates and you had too many people to go against whoever the champion was. So in this case, and I love that belt. To me, Pedro was the first one to wear that style, and that's the greatest belt in the world to me. It really is.
But definitely props to Uncle Ivan because he had great runs with all three of the guys, right? I mean,
yeah. Now at that point, Ivan had dropped about 20 to 25 pounds, so he was a little bit lighter, which was great to work with Backlund because when he hit Bruno in 75, because they never had a return match in 71. Bruno figured, that's it, I'm done. I'm out of here. But then when they bring him back 75, he goes 3 with Koloff. Koloff was still heavy, but by this point, he was starting to trim down. And then when he returned, Ivan Koloff returned in 83, he was even a little bit lighter, still powerful. But then he and Backlund could really give you a razzle-dazzle scientific match.
Yeah. Let's see. What do we got next here?
There he is. One of the most underrated, in my opinion, Big Bob Duncum, or if you prefer, Cowboy Bob Duncum. That was their first match, November the 19th of 79. Both are bloody. It's hard to see Backlund in that picture. But what happened was, before this match, and I'll give you a quick breakdown of some wild stuff. Maybe we've talked about it before. If not, just bear with us. Before this match, Duncum was wrestling Bill Berger, and Arnold Skolin happened to be at ringside talking with Vince. And of course, Duncum and Albano, they're just dismantling Bill Berger. So Skolin goes to help the guy, and of course, they turn on Skolin. Well, here
Oh, yeah.
comes Backlund with he's got a suit on, one of those three-piece suits of the 70s. He throws his jacket, comes into the ring, and then he gets a knee in the back from Duncombe, and they go to work on Backlund. So this is the first match. Now, they basically try to kill each other. The return match for December 17th was a Texas death match. Okay. Before that, Backlund loses the belt to Inoki in Japan. We don't know about it in the States. Never heard about it for many years, probably not until 20 years later. But what was going on, Japan was there. This was the second year that they were there for the big holiday show. But Inoki wrestled the Sheik, at that time known as Great Hussein, and they put, Inoki over big time. Sheik bled. It was a great match. But Backlund, they didn't announce him as heavyweight champion. And for a Texas death match, this was one tame match, Daddy. I mean, I don't even think a blow was thrown throughout the whole thing. So Hisashi Shima is in the ring with the belt. At that point, it was the turquoise belt. Nothing is said, but Japan is right next to Vince, simulcasting back home to Japan. So, whatever they're saying, we don't know. We can't hear it. We probably wouldn't understand it anyway. So, as far as we know, the way it played out, Backlund got the belt back from Inoki, but it was under clouded circumstances. So, Japan says they're going to have a match in New York, December 17th, to determine who the champion will be, Duncombe or Backlund. So we watched this match, and Howard Finkel never announced Backlund as champion. He just said, this is the main event. He didn't even say Texas death match. And then, in fact, that was one of Howard Finkel's mistakes. He made two mistakes over the years. One was when he started to announce Vicky Williams as 235 pounds. He's like, I'm sorry, 135, because I think she was going to drop kick him with that one. And this one, as he's making the announcements, he says, from Austin, Texas, weighing 300 pounds, Bob Backlund. I'm sorry, Bob Duncombe. Vince was probably like, what the hell are you doing, Howard? We got Japan here.
Off night, do you think?
Yeah, but God love Howard. He was just beautiful. So anyway, the match ends with Backlund rolls up Duncombe out of the corner, and it's like 1, 2, 3. Like, this is the follow-up to the bloodbath. But again, none of us knew all that was going on behind the scenes.
Right.
Yet, and somebody in the audience, and I got a copy of the match, they holler, Backlund lost the belt. Backlund lost the belt. That's like, what the hell is that? It didn't pick up on it. And when I originally saw it back in, I guess, when tape trading began in 1983, it's like, who the hell is that guy? We didn't know about it yet. A couple more years we would. And it's like, that's wild. Vince must have shit himself when the guy started hollering that.
But I mean, you're so right about Duncan being, flying under the radar and being underrated. That guy was great. I really enjoyed his work.
If you go back, April 14th of 75, he wrestled Victor Rivera. That was the night Bruno put Arion away in the Greek death match. They went about 15 minutes, and that's where you see Bob Duncombe. My God. I mean, for a 300-pound man, he had stamina, speed. He kept up with Victor, and Victor was no slouch. That was a damn good match. In my opinion, it stole the show.
Let's see. What do we got next here?
Oh, the greatest cage match, in my opinion, of all time. Without a doubt. Bob Backlund against Pat Patterson. 4 runs. Now, here you go again. July 2nd, Patterson's first shot in the Garden with Backlund. Backlund bleeds. And now, that's another great promo. And here's another master, Pat Patterson. When he got out there, he's rattling off all the titles he had. This was before he beat DiBiase, which is tomorrow in 1979. He beat DiBiase for that so-called North American belt. But even excluding that, Patterson's yakking off, he did this one half of the tag team champions on the West Coast, United States champion, this, that. It's like, man, this guy's got credentials. So he beats Backlund. Yeah, he beats Backlund on blood. Then they come back. for July 30th. And, same thing. It ends with a big wild ending. August 27th, and we figure this is going to be it. It's nobody goes more than 3, but it's a count out. Backlund loses again, and it's like, what the hell? Until we get to this match. And I tell you, Benny, did you ever see it?
Long time ago, but it's one I definitely want to check out again.
It's a little bit convoluted that the Worldwide Wrestling Federation had the winner be the guy that ran out of the cage, but it makes sense that you beat the hell out of the guy so much, your opponent, that he can't stop you from leaving. This was, if you wanted to have a class on how to do a cage match, this was it. People were on the edge of their seats. Here, it's near the end of the match. See Patterson, you can see the brass knuckles taped around him. And he actually took off one of the turnbuckles at one point early in the match. He twisted it to the point where it came off, and they busted Backlund open with it. I mean, it was like, wow. But the excitement, Patterson almost gets out like 3 times. Then Backlund's trying to get out the door. Then they're climbing on top. Patterson's halfway out at one point. Vince is screaming, Patterson's 3/4 of a champion. I mean, if he falls, he'll be champion. But it's like, but they knew what they were doing. 2 pros. Then they both are bloody. Backlund catapults Patterson into the cage, and he comes up cut, and it's like, man, that was great. And how Backlund won, he basically slid out on his back. He kicked off, pushed Patterson off of him, and he slides down the stairs. And they have to help Backlund up and basically get him to his feet like you would if you just got done beating the living shit out of each other. That's how you do it. If you want to be a wrestler, watch that. You don't get up after you have respect for your opponent and your partner that you're in there working with. After he gives you a finish, don't get up and walk away like he just dusted you off or tickled you. He beat your brains out. Sell it. That's what they did.
Right?
There.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautifully done. That's one of my favorite cage matches of all time. Backlund, September 24th of 79. I loved it. It was and I mean, again, it bears repeating, 4 matches that Patterson went. Of course, he wins the Intercontinental belt in between all of this, and that was great. And how many times had we seen a heel to face change and have it actually work? Not too many. I think Pat may have been the real only one that was worthwhile mentioning.
That was a good job when they turned him babyface.
And against Albano. So it's like,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
There you go.
We'll be seeing more Captain Lou here.
Okay, here we go. Now, this is the first match that Backlund had after the turn that Maivia did in the tag match on television. And this is Backlund's first opponent that didn't face Bruno. Maivia would face Bruno in January, but never happened in Madison Square Garden. So here they are, November the 20th of 78, and Backlund wants to kill him. Like he was screaming, "I'll kill that son of a bitch" on television. He did. He got him bloody, but they worked us because Backlund got counted out chasing Maivia around the ring, to the point where Andre, who was up next against Ernie Ladd, came out and put the belt around Backlund. I mean, what a touch of class. That was beautiful. But at least he got the blood on Maivia, so that made the people happy, but it kept everybody wanting more. And they had a cage match to blow everything off in January, but that's where Backlund actually climbed out of the cage to get the win. That was unusual, but Backlund did it, and they were both bloody in that one. So, well, again, bravo, well done. Peter Maivia, I actually visited his grave one time in Hawaii. He's right by Diamond Head, and it's not like a big marker. It's not. I mean, it's respectful. Everything is there, but the caretaker knew exactly where it was, so it's like, I had to pay my respects, because there was a time back in 1978, I was waiting outside the Civic Center for actually Strongbow. He and Maivia were going to wrestle Tanaka and Fuji. So I'm waiting outside down by the Holiday Inn, which is like across the street from the Civic Center, but down from the entrance. So I figured, well, if Chief's anywhere, he's going to come out of the Holiday Inn. Well, little did I know, how things operated. They didn't really stay overnight that much, not in that town at least. It may be the next town over. So this car pulls up, and Maivia gets out. I didn't recognize him at first. He had on a cap, like a cabbie's cap, that little brim thing. And I'm like, hey, now I had a magazine with me, and there was a little girl in the neighborhood. She loved him. She was sick because I wasn't an autograph collector, never was. I like to get my photos personalized, but a piece of paper just didn't do it for me. But I was going to try to get it for her. So I said, hey, Peter, can you sign this for this little girl? And he's like, see me later, brother. I'm busy. I'm like, you're busy? Son of a bitch. It would take you 10 seconds.
Right.
Here's that smiling Samoan. He goes walking off into the sunset. So I'm like, okay. Well, I'm waiting and, still trying to wait for Strongbow. About an hour later, I hear, hey. And I look up the street, and it's Maivia. He says, come here. What do you got? And then he signs it for me. It's like, wow, that was great. Now you're back in my heart. Maybe you were busy. What the hell do I know? But that was beautiful. So I remember him, so I paid my respects. Yeah. And I mean, poor guy, he died with the cancer, and the tattoos are legitimate. And people should know that by now. That was a legitimate ritual that he done in like 3 or 4 days, and almost died from blood poisoning, because that's something that should be done like over 6 months. But, wrestlers, they defy the laws of gravity. They defy everything. Doctors, lawyers, whatever. And so he made it.
Definitely their own breed.
And I'll tell you real quick, Strongbow told me stories of his strength. He said he would break police handcuffs. Maivia was incredibly strong. You could see it, but sometimes you don't feel it, but boom, yeah. All right, here we are. Tell us what that is, Benny.
Is that Bruno Superstar?
Bruno Superstar with Gorilla Monsoon as the guest referee. Now,
you kind of can't see it. Okay.
The month before, it was a weird ending. It was the first match they had in the Garden with Bruno against the new champion Superstar on June 27th. So it was weird. John Stanley was the referee. And it's kind of like they were wrestling with him. It wasn't like he got punched and knocked down or he got hit with the shoulder. He was like in between them for a couple of minutes, and it's like, this is screwy. It really is a weird finish because the Garden was erupting. They wanted Bruno to get the belt back. They're just like, everything was everything they did, just it sold like crazy. But the finish was dumb, in my opinion. So the next month they bring Monsoon in. Now they both bleed extensively, but Monsoon, he did the most brilliant thing. He took one time he took Superstar and rubbed his head across that white shirt. And he's covered in the blood. Then he did it with Bruno, and it's like, holy shit. The one on the left, he doesn't have, well, he does. You just can't really see it. But the one on the right, you can see it more. Monsoon's covered in the blood. This is the famous match where Superstar just said, that's it. He leaves the ring, and Monsoon goes out, taps him on the shoulder. Superstar takes the wild swing, and Monsoon fireman carries him back and thumps him in the ring. But, of course, it ended with the doctor saying, you got to stop it. They're both too bloody. But the Garden was in a frenzy. It's like everybody thought there'd be a third match. But, again, they had a game plan. Because then you had Dusty Rhodes that was going to be coming in September. And they wanted to sneak Putski in there, which is a damn good match. For all the heat that Putski takes, that he's a shit wrestler, I never thought so. But that match with Superstar, it's great. It's damn good match, without a doubt. So, yeah, that was the blow-off. Bruno got it. Well, they wrestled at the Spectrum, and the same thing happened. They set sellouts, the records at the Spectrum. In fact, due to the scheduling, the first match, September 17th, Bruno got the blood on Superstar, rammed him into the post, Everybody's like crazy, frantic. Referee Dick Worley, the greatest in my opinion of referees, he's looking at the cut and he check with the doctor, and then we don't know what's happening. And then all of a sudden, Dick Worley just backs Bruno off and raises his hand, and the whole arena thinks Bruno's the champion. Of course, he's not. Couldn't have a rematch until December the 10th. That's another one where Graham just walks off. Couldn't have another rematch until 2 days before Graham drops the belt, February 18th, and it's been verified. They turned away 10,000 people with that sellout. And Superstar bled, because it's funny. Monsoon was doing the color with Dick Graham, and they're like, yeah, the blood's flowing like crazy. And Dick Graham's like, yeah, I got it all over me, because, of course, it's splattering all over the place. And that's so-called famous match where Superstar wanted Bruno to just you go out. You go out. Let me knock you out.
10,000 people away. That's insane.
10,000 people. Phil Zacco must have had 3 strokes with that one, but it's like the building was packed. It's just like, how could it not be? Plus, and they didn't mean for this to happen with the wide gap in the dates. It's just, you had basketball, hockey, whatever else going on. The Spectrum had a lot of concerts as well. I mean, bands, all of our favorites from that time, they wanted to play the Garden or the Spectrum, because the Spectrum was number 2 only to Madison Square Garden. So they held 19,000. You were going to get a hell of a payday if you filled that place.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What do we got next here?
There it is.
Oh, man, this is great.
The Chief against Greg Valentine. Now, the month before, July 2nd, when the Chief came back from the broken leg in the Garden, he bloodied Valentine like you wouldn't believe. I think we have some of those pictures too. But this was the follow-up, the Indian strap match. It was good, but here's where things got a little bit weird. Now, it ended with Tito, Putski, and Dominic coming in because the referee got knocked down and they just separated them. But there was a fan at ringside that got involved, and Valentine was on the outside. This was when everybody had already hit the ring to make the save, and Valentine reached for a chair at ringside. Well, this guy reaches over the railing and grabs the chair, and he pulls it away from. Well, Valentine starts laying in shots on this guy, and I mean, this is no bullshit. He's clocking this guy. He didn't catch him in the face. He caught him across the back. But the Chief right away jumped out and spun Valentine around, because it's like, what the hell are you doing? And then Monsoon came out, and he's got on because it's summertime. It was July 29th. So he's got on or July 30th, he's got on this light colored suit that's like blood's all over the place. The poor Monsoon had to get his suit ruined with the blood. But it's like, we got to stop this before there's a riot. And because Valentine tried to go back to the guy, because the police are there. They're trying to, arrest the guy, and like, you can't get involved like that. Son of a bitch. Or we will have somebody crippled or have a riot. But that was another angle that was just done to perfection. We loved it.
So many of them.
The Chief and now that's a legit broken nose. May 16th, at Superstar's first title defense that night against Monsoon. This was the precursor to the White Wolf broken neck, because this is May 16th. The White Wolf broken neck would be the TV taping May 24th. But they went at it hammer and tongue in this match. 20-minute draw, and this is how it ended. Everybody thinks Patera's out with the sleeper, but it's actually the time limit. They knocked over the table, chased Vince out, beat each other with chairs. And again, it's before White Wolf's broken neck. It's just they went to war with each other. And it didn't get any easier after that. Anytime you had the Chief versus Patera, you had just World War V. It was unbelievable. That's one of my favorite pictures. In fact, there was a guy named Barry that would come down from New York. Ben Gate was his last name. And I was at the show in Baltimore. It was July 22nd of 78. And I had ringside seats. And I see all these people milling about, and it looked like the stock exchange. I'm like, the hell's going on? Then I see these people coming back with these photographs. I'm like, where did you get that? And they're like, the guy over there, he's selling them. He's got these big binders. And I'm like, holy shit. So I go over and I'm like, wow. And he says, who do you like? I said, you got any of the Chief? He started laughing. He's like, yeah. And he opened. I'm like, oh, baby. So that was the first one I grabbed. That's like, man, they were $1 a piece in 78. That was no chump change, people. To pay $1 for this was no 8x10. This was one of those little size pictures. And it's like, but I gotta have it. I gotta have that picture. And there was a couple other ones in there. And it's like, that was well worth it. Believe me.
Oh yeah.
And that match, it's just a classic. It's well done.
Oof.
There he is with the superstar. Now, that's Boston, August 22nd of 77. Little did I know, because that Saturday I would see the same match in Baltimore. But we didn't know what the hell was going on in other arenas. Little did I know the Monday night, because the Chief wore the same trunks as he's wearing that night. Superstar wore black trunks in Baltimore that night. But it's like, look at that. Look how he sold. And that match ended. The Chief had the sleeper on Superstar. They ring the bell. Everybody thinks, Superstar's done. But it's like, no, Tony Altomare was the ref. He stopped it because of the cut. He said, no, Superstar is bleeding too badly. They had a cage match the next month in September on the 19th. And, it was a great match. But in that one, the Chief, it was his turn to bleed like he had a gunshot wound. And they played it to perfection. I always thought they had a great match because, and you'll probably, I think we have time to get to it. The Texas Bull Rope match, the Chief was the guest referee for that match. And of course, it's very much biased with Dusty Rhodes, without a doubt. Vince even says, Strongbow, he's supposed to be unbiased, but he's certainly favoring Rhodes in this match. And it's like, so the next month, he and Superstar had a match in the Garden. Nothing really spectacular. Graham went over by a pin, had his foot on the ropes and all that, but it's like, that was good. And then Superstar was fading out. So it didn't really materialize into anything too tremendous, but that was a great series in Boston. That match and then the following month with the cage. Well done. And you can tell the yellow, that's the Guard. Now, this one, there's the Fink in the ring, Howard Finkel. This put an end to Bruno versus Patera. Now, you can't see it, but Gorilla Monsoon's the guest referee again. But now, remember, people, I told you the first month that Patera wrestled, there was a gale storm. It wasn't a blizzard. And it was like freezing temperatures. January 17th, because I remember the Potomac was frozen. I was going to work on a bus going to the Department of Motor Vehicles, and you could walk out onto the water. You could drive probably. You didn't have to worry. It was a brutal, brutal winter. So that first night, nobody could get to the Garden. They were like 4,000 to 6,000 light. And the old man was saying, he's done. Bruno, this is it. It's like Bruno's like, no, it's not him. Nobody can get here. Just trust me. So I think Patera, to make up for it, this is the third match now that they had. And you see, he bled like crazy. And it didn't end here. Because then they had a return match, a Texas death match. See, instead of Bruno coming back against Superstar a third time, then they brought in Putski. Bruno finished up with Patera. And it was like a double pin out of the corner, just like Morales and Koloff. But Patera didn't lift his shoulder. Bruno did. And that ended the Bruno Patera. Actually, 4 matches there. But between March and August, they had a big break. So, yeah, again, well done. Ken Patera, as your favorites, one of your favorite interviews, one of my all-time favorites.
Oh, yeah. He is my favorite. Yeah.
This man, and Bruno had so much respect for him. Now, this picture here, our guy, our all-time bloodbath king, Captain Lou Albano. But this picture specifically, this is against Jimmy Snuka, November 22nd of 82. Everybody remembers with the Ray Stevens attack and the 2 pile drivers on the floor. Lou was Jimmy's manager. Then, and I mean, that was brilliant. Buddy Rogers comes back then into wrestling, and he's starting Rogers' corner. They set up the angle, and then the attack on television. And I mean, Snuka was cut to shreds. But you could see Lou's he handed him the blade right in the middle of the ring, and then Jimmy just went to work on himself. Not here, but the television match on taped October the 5th of that year. So, then they gave the 2, because after the pile drivers on the floor, son of a bitch, I should have put that in there. The floor's covered with blood.
Oh yeah,
not that Jimmy's head hit it, but just so much blood all over the place. And it's like, damn. So Jimmy's return match, November 22nd, is against Lou. And I mean, people are just like, rah, rah, ready to see the massacre. But here's what happened. Lou loses his blade. And in fact, Gorilla Monsoon, that was his first night doing the color with Vince at Madison Square Garden. And they're like, look at Albano. Gorilla, it looks like Albano's actually looking for something. And Monsoon's like, yeah, it looks like he lost a contact lens. They didn't realize he dropped his blade. He reaches into that tunic he's wearing, because they even mentioned Albano's going into that tunic, and he pulls out a straight razor, and he just starts doing it across his head. And it's like Vince Sr. had 3 heart attacks and a stroke, because the story is he's like, Lou, what the hell are you trying to do? Lose the garden for me? The State Athletic Commission sitting, they're watching you. It's bad enough to use the little blade. You pull this weapon out. My God, if they don't take our license away, I'll be amazed. And they didn't, because I don't know, maybe he had to write a check after that or something, but it's like Lou was very obvious with that. And it's like he already had enough color as it was. But, Lou actually got a couple of cracked ribs because Jimmy gave him the splash, and he was able to roll out of the ring, because he said, I was peeing blood for a while after that. He said, Jimmy caught me good. It's tough. Jimmy used to fly across the ring. We'd never seen anything like that before.
No.
And it's like, man, how you going to land? I mean, you're trying to cover the guy, and that hit him with both knees. Like Morocco got busted up pretty good too when Snuka came off the top of the cage, because the knees caught him and the ribs. I mean, from that high up, son of a bitch, it's a tough target to hit, but
something's going to give. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, magnificent one. And there he is against the Chief. Now, that was the night the Chief and Sonny King won the belts. Monsoon was supposed to wrestle, but he wasn't able to make it. So, of course, put the Chief in there with Lou Albano. There's no complaints. But this, to me, was when it began, of throwing Albano to the wolves with anybody, any face that's beloved by the fans. And you see, Lou does the job. And credit the great Frank Amato, George Napolitano's friend, who I mentioned when we had George on. I got a lot of great pictures from Frank over the years. Like George said, don't know what happened. I haven't talked to him in 20 years. I don't know if he's alive or not. No heat, no problems. He just kind of faded off. I think he moved to Brooklyn or whatever, and that was it. Now, this one lady, though, she looks like she's got a Burger King uniform on. It's kind of funny, but anyway, there's Lou. He got worked over good by the Chief, and I mean, how could you not be happy that night? The Chief and Sonny King won the tag belts May 22nd of 72, and then he just dismantles Lou Albano on top of it, and boy, orgasmic again. Better than sex.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody went home happy.
Lou should have got his 1 gallon patch from the Red Cross.
Well, you know what? That's why they say when he was going to do that, he used to really hit the wine and hit the sauce pretty good, because you'll bleed like crazy. When you get that in your system, the blood's going to take off. Boom, boom, it's coming out. But hey, again, God bless you, Lou. He wasn't afraid of a blade. It's like, There's a professional. If you want to be true to your craft, follow Lou Albano. I mean, here's a guy, And again, you got to eat the humble pie. I go in there and I'm going to get massacred. But you know what? Everybody's happy. Everybody's coming to see that. And it's doing my job. Made the promoters happy.
He put the big picture over his own ego, correct?
Absolutely, Penny. Absolutely. And that's what it's all about. But you know, as the story goes, it was Bruno's idea to get Lou as a manager. Because he said, you're really not that good as a wrestler,
Yeah.
but you really got the gift of gab, and you could draw heat, So it's like, why don't you become a manager? And it was like, man, that was just perfect. I don't know who I'd rather listen to more, Lou or to Freddie. There it is, the alley fight. Pat Patterson against Sergeant Slaughter. Now, with that one, everybody remembers the Cobra Clutch Challenge. Another masterfully orchestrated setup before you got, not this wasn't first. They did have a match the month before, no blood, but, it was just cat and mouse. Slaughter wouldn't let him get close. But the TV setup every week, and it was somebody else. And to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what put Sergeant Slaughter on the map. He had a good match with Backlund in October on the 20th, and he bled like this. Actually, it was almost a rehearsal. Slaughter looked like that, but he ended the match with the Cobra Clutch on Backlund. And Skolin came in with a chair because Slaughter had kicked Skolin before he went out of the ring. As he was getting back in, he kicked Skolin. So Skolin nails him with the chair. It stops the match. The next month, Backlund's in Japan. So Slaughter wrestles Bruno. That's the night John Lennon was shot. And the night Pedro becomes Intercontinental Champion, December the 8th of 1980. But Slaughter had been a couple places. He hadn't really hit Philadelphia yet. But when that Cobra Clutch Challenge started in January, man, that's when it just started to escalate. And it hit a fevered pitch that never has subsided for the Sarge. And this here, when he bled, I got to reveal something. Did you remember the match, Benny?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the finish, or not the finish, but before Slaughter's cut, Patterson grabs him in like a reverse crab and catapults him into the post. It looks like Slaughter has split his head open, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. That was a trademark move by the Sarge. If you carefully watch, when he's laying on his back before Pat catapults him, you could actually see Sarge maneuver the blade into position while he's flat on his back. As he flies, he narrowly misses the post, and when he comes off the post, he just rips it. And I mean, he friggin' ripped it, because he said he and his wife were supposed to go somewhere the next day on a trip, and she was like, I don't know. I mean, I think you would go back to the hospital. The State Athletic Commission, tacked him up in the back. But it's like that was a brutal, brutal cut. But that's what you needed to do. And what another perfect ending, because Patterson banging him with the boot, bangs him into the post again. The blood continues to flow. But here comes the Wizard, and he throws in the towel. The first time it gets hung up on the rope and shit. He does it the second time. And Vince is just perfect selling. And it's like, the Wizard's pleading with Slaughter not to go back in there. Slaughter, he's still fighting. Look at it. And it's like, he looks like a man that's ready to die. And it's perfect. He wears a white shirt, and it's like beautiful, because you want it to be seen, and it was seen. Just, I mean, look, when it was real, guys and gals out there, that's what the hell it was all about. That's what we lived for. Every month was
Amen.
Bruno against Killer Kowalski. There you go. Two great friends, two great workers. Now, this was Walter's last run in 74. But Executioners, of course, came after. But as Killer Kowalski, So April the 29th of 74, and I mean, they went at it for about 20 good minutes, but Bruno was a little obvious with the blading, and they put that on the Coliseum video as one of the gifts that we used to get before tape trading really became popular. But the explosion that occurs in the garden when Bruno, because Bruno did the crouch and he's bloody, and Kowalski, give him credit. He's biting Bruno's head. His mouth looks like he ate a jelly sandwich. I mean, there's another pro. It's like, we got to make this look good, right? So it's like a vampire. He took a hunk out of Bruno. He's got like the jelly sandwich around his face, and he's trying to stop him. And here's Bruno in the crouch, and he's making his move, and Walter's hitting and hitting. And then when Bruno just goes, and he comes back, the place just, it's crazy. And Bruno's just murdering. And Denny Bartfield, one of the all-time great referees in Madison Square Garden, there's nothing he could do to stop it. Chief hits the ring, Dean Ho, Pedro. It's like they try to, they were able to separate them. But wow, what a classic. If you get a chance to see it, if it's on YouTube or if anybody's got it out there, man, it's a classic match because they did a lot of mat work as well as the brawling, which those two were famous for. And it's perfect. One of the all-time classic matches.
Bruno always said, though, you had to be on your A game with Kowalski because he kept coming at you. Never stopped.
Well, what did they go? An hour and a half one time? He and Monsoon, he and Kowalski. And Monsoon, a big man, to go that long because Bruno said they were actually licking the salt off of each other to try to keep from becoming too dehydrated because they were outside in an arena, and it was like, you're dying from the heat, and you can't take time out and say, give me a drink or something like in football where you can put down some
yeah,
or even boxing where you hit, ding ding in between rings, and you could spit it out at least to get some fluid in you. But yeah, that was it. You're out there, man. There's no taste.
Ooh, jeez.
The Magnificent Morocco. Now,
damn.
Pedro did that to him. And that was the night Pedro got the Intercontinental belt back. November 23rd of 81. That was the double Texas death match night. Backlund against Valentine and then Pedro against Morocco. But look, Pedro was a great heavyweight champion, but I really, in my heart, believe he was a better Intercontinental champion. He was the king of selling, in my opinion. Pedro was. He'd make you believe he'd lost a kidney. He could howl. He could whine. He could breathe like he's on his last breath. But then he made that comeback. And when he made the comeback, and when he started clapping the hands, and he'd lay those lefts in there, and he and Morocco, and maybe next week, we'll go and do a Hall of Fame show because I have the anniversary program from the first one that occurred in 94 on June 9th. But he and Morales, they hadn't seen each other for a long time. And they were like so happy because the battles, 1981 was about Morocco and Morales, in my opinion. And we didn't know that Don Morocco was this great talent in Florida when he first came to the World Wrestling Federation in 81. And he won an hour with Backlund 2 times, people, in one night at the Capitol Center on October 17th in the afternoon. And then they drove an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours to the Spectrum to do it again, a completely different match. Because I saw the first one and I have the second one. And it's like, holy shit. These are 2 pros, man. And if you think it's not hard to get in there for an hour, go ahead and try it.
Not too many that can do that.
No. And keep the people on the edge of their seat. Now, here's one of the greatest fallacies, mistakes that people make. When you first look at it, you think it's the Texas Bull Rope match. It's not. It's the Texas Death Match on October the 24th of 77. John Stanley, you can see the referee, But Superstar actually pulled out a length of rope from under the ring during this. They're both bloody here. Maybe hard to see, but they were both cut pretty good. And then Dusty did the hanging with it. I mean, it was well done. You see Superstar saving his own life. He's got his foot, so he's taking some of the pressure off. But, I mean, the Garden was in a frenzy. But they failed at the end. It was the dud of all dud endings. They have a mid-ring collision. The ring is covered in blood. And then Superstar merely lays his arm across Rhodes' chest and he gets a 3 count. And it's like, what the hell just happened? I don't believe it. It's crazy. But that's how they ended it. Wild. Now there's the Texas Bull Rope match. Now the Chief, if you can go forward real quick, can you do that and then go back? Yep. The Chief is the guest referee for that match. Now go back to the blood, because actually that cowbell, you hear it clanging in the middle of the ring, and it's like, it was great, a great sound effect, a great gimmick to use, but they really didn't know what the hell they were doing, because you hear a couple of times Superstar saying to Rhodes, what are we going to do? What do we do next? And then he throws him outside. You see Superstar holler, pull me back in. And then he yanks him back into the ring. But now this is the match where Strongbow actually did favor Dusty. They both got cut. Dusty was first, then Superstar. And Dusty did a good job of looking like he was making, what the heck they call it, with the potato pancakes in Superstar's head. I mean, he was grinding that in. They both bled buckets that night. It was fantastic. But what happened was the Chief got in the middle of them, and then Dusty swung the cowbell, hit Superstar in the head. And for this match, for some goofy reason, you had an 8 count on the floor and you could lose besides a pin or a submission. And they counted 8, and that was it. And it was like, that's kind of weird, but that's how the match ended. But people were happy. But that was the last time those two would meet at Madison Square Garden. And it was sad, but we didn't know it at the time, because we didn't know what the hell was going to happen with either career. Superstar, in fact, didn't really stay around too much longer after that. That was August. He would leave in November, but that was the last time Superstar and Dusty Rhodes met at the Garden.
I mean, who could sell better than Superstar, really?
Another pro. I mean, he bled buckets. He did whatever needed to be done. Example with Backlund. He didn't want to do it. He fought it like somebody going to the electric chair, but that was it. I want to say this. How in the hell could you expect the guy that cheated to beat the most beloved champion in the history of the sport? How are you going to make him a face? It's not going to work. People came every month to see him beaten when he was champion. They didn't come to see Dusty Rhodes get beat by Superstar. That's not why they brought Dusty Rhodes from Florida. They wanted to see Rhodes beat Graham.
No, same with Neil Mascaris too, right? And,
Strongbow, all down the road. Yeah. It's like Bobo Brazil got brought in for a one-night shot in Baltimore. He wasn't even in the area. They didn't bring him in so Superstar could beat him. Everybody filled Baltimore Civic Center to see Bobo win the belt. It's like, you got to think, people. That's why Superstar was selling out. They wanted to see him beat. Would he be over as a face? He was a damn cool champion, I must admit, because before the days of the guardrail, you could walk to the ring and he'd flex that arm free. And I was like, my God, it's unbelievable, He was throwing $75 leather caps to the crowd. And I know that because a guy named David Loptan used to write the Baltimore Civic Center programs, and he said it was a $75 leather cap that Graham threw out the month before to the fans, and throwing T-shirts. He was one of the first to do that, I believe. He must have had a trunk load of those Arizona State T-shirts, because he was throwing them to the crowd left and right.
Oh yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't love that, right? Son of a bitch. You get yourself a nice souvenir. And there's the beginning of the cowbell match.
Yeah. And I believe
No
that is,
reason that they put the Chief as a referee only to set up the next month and Chief would wrestle Superstar. And in wrestling, as it was always a chain, as Bob Backlund said, a counter move to the new move to the counter move. You were always setting up the next show. Whatever was happening here. Like, what was more anticipated than hearing the next month's card?
oh yeah,
I mean, it was silence because you wanted to hear what it was going to be. You know, who's going to be here? What are they going to have? And then it was like, man, all of a sudden you forgot about the night because God forbid the last match, because they got wise after a while. The main event wasn't on last anymore. And it made sense because after you've been seeing everything for the last 2.5 hours, what the hell's the sense of bringing out the main event? People are spent. Bring the main event, bring it out like 4th or 5th, and it makes you're going to have more heat to it. So
yeah.
it was good.
Well, Nikita, this was another great show. I mean, this brought back a lot of memories. I'll tell you one thing, though. They really did know how to draw us in.
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt. I still do. Look, when people say, do you watch today? No, I have those matches that we've seen. Well, most of them anyway. It's like, why? Why would I watch anything but that? How can you not? You've seen it before.
I might,
I don't care.
After we're done, go on YouTube and try to catch a couple of those because they're masterpieces. You can't beat them.
You can't go wrong. Yeah, Benny, you'll love it. It's great. I mean, just beautiful.
Yeah. So many thanks to everyone who joined us tonight for When It Was Real. Well, we went an hour and 10 minutes like it was nothing.
Yes.
Time flies when you have fun, literally. So we have much more great stuff on the way. So please hit the like and subscribe button so you won't miss any episodes on this great Monte the Pharaoh YouTube channel. If you're a fan of professional wrestling, this channel is a must. So many great interviews and other content. We'll be back next week for some more old school wrestling chat. So for the great Nikita Brezhnikov, this is Benny Scala, the one and only player, also the poet laureate of the Monte the Pharaoh YouTube channel. Leaving you with this. We hope you loved. It's a bloody great show. And it's kind of sad that we have to go because when we're together, I think we all feel how great it was when it was real. Night, folks.
До свидания, товарищ.